So I've let these dry and rub the pencil away, so I can start to build up the colour now. There's on any rounded form, obviously you've got highlight, mid-tone and a form shadow, and then you've got some reflected light probably on the shade light side. So I'm going to create a form shadow that forms an arc, but not hard against the edge, just around in this sort of position. So I'll be using a darker shade, and it depends on which fruit really, because some are more red and some are more brown. So I'll start with a more red one, and this is really quite a dry brush technique. Just have to get the actual wetness correct. I'm using a spotter brush for this, but a miniature will do as well, the 100 Newton miniature, size 1 or 2. This is a Rosemary & Co spotter. It's similar, but it's a bit fatter in terms of how many hairs there are on it. But the main point about any brush you use for dry brushes, it's fairly short hair. And because it's dry, it's fairly dry, you can keep working with it for quite a while. It's what I would call a damp brush rather than dry brush, but you don't want too much water on it because you're diluting it too much then. And you can control this quite well. A lot more yellow on this side, so I'll alter the bias of the colour. You can just test your brush before you put it on like that. It's just obviously for the sketchbook, just a rough version. Work quite quickly. And the best way of seeing where you've got hard edges is if you half close your eyes and look at your subject, and you can see the harder edges. So I tend to leave them quite soft around the edges, so you've got more concentration of colour sort of centrally, and then some softer edges where you've got reflected light. And so if you half close your eyes, you can see that quite clearly on the subject. It all depends on how the light's bouncing off different areas. It's one of the darker ones. They're quite brown. put the red in first and then I'll put the brown over the top. So essentially the colours are the same, but we're adding a brown on top, or Perylene Maroon. I'll come back in with a smaller brush and tidy that up around the edges and that afterwards. So I got a bit of green in this one, so I'll use just a small amount of green and gold on this side first. Again, be very careful not to lose the highlights. So it's just a case of getting the right amount of wetness on it. You can see I'm sort of following that arc around. I'm moving in a bit on the highlight, but you see I'm never going over it, and if I need to I can darken it, but you can't make it lighter. And if I want to take out a highlight, and never take out a main highlight. A main highlight should always never be painted over, other than with an initial sort of glaze as the blue or whatever you might have. But on a shade area you can have like a reflected highlight that can be taken out just by wetting the brush, dampening the brush and lifting it and dabbing it. Just dab that with some kitchen towel to lift it. And for the anthers and stamens that just dried up on the end of the fruit, I'll probably use a mixed brown, something like Van Dyke brown and raw umber, I think. So what I would do is put the lighter raw umber on first. Just painting it in quite roughly. As I say, it's only a sketchbook page, so there's no need to go mad. Let that dry and then put in the detail with the Van Dyke brown. So once I've roughly establish the colours of the berries. Again, make a note always of the colours. I know I haven't done it here, but I will go back and write down what I did. And I start to look at the leaf colours next. So as I say, this green's quite a light green, light to mid green, and it's got a very blue biased lightness about it. So as I say, I'll start with a blue that's of a similar hue to the green that I'm trying, similar tone to the green I'm trying to create. So I'm going to go somewhere like a cobalt or even cerulean blue to start with. So again, I make the the main colours at the top, and I'm going to go for possibly Windsor yellow for this one. And it might need a small amount of red, and the red in it in the stem is quite it's quite a blue biased red. So I'm probably going to be looking at permanent magenta and permanent carmine. Make a note of them as well. Now, if I need to add something to the green, it's usually you start with the two primers of the yellow and the blue, and then add a small amount of one of the reds that you're using. So we'll try a mix to see if that's anywhere near. Mixing the green and the yellow, and it's too bright. It's not bad, but it's still too bright, and it needs a small amount of red in it. Somewhat of a grey green. And adding red makes it a more natural looking green. Make it a bit more dense. And that's a better shade of green for it. Again, notes of all these colours. The leaves nearer to the fruit are more green, so we'll add more yellow to it. And we can play about with the mixes until we get it absolutely right. So that's got more yellow. Same colours, just adding yellow. That's nearer to the colours in the leaf, the greener leaf. And we're probably looking at the mix somewhere between the two here for the stems, slightly purple and more red here. So got enough to go on really to give it a try. I could try just some individual leaves here in this space. Or I could go straight to the painting at this point.